to solve that by cutting open the entryway to the front. But we were able to safely pass that through and move on to launch the rocket.
Our flight analysis, our rocket flight was a good but slow and short flight. Our flight did not reach Mach 1 because it was too heavy and too big. Our recovery system did not also work because the rocket did not go high enough for the recovery system to activate. We did ended up salvaging our altimeter, and we did end up going around 8,000 feet in the air until. And this is our flight right here. So I hope what I said pretty much sums up what happened in that video. So in conclusion, our rocket was a great success being able to launch that 20-pound beast of a rocket. Although our rocket did not launch as our team wanted it to launch, going through that long process to get it approved was overall worth it, and seeing it go up in the air.
Wait, here, I'll do this and go check this out.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Sharon Cardoza. To my right is
Ariana. Valeria, Dani, Jackie, Allison.
we're here to speak to you over our rocket launch on April 24th.
So our rocket was gonna reach apogee of 1 mile with a 1 pound payload. And the launch date was April 24th, as Abraham just said. And so we had, like quite a bit of time to build since we started ordering stuff in like February. And we had to check like the flight readiness before the launch. We had to make sure everything was in order for it to, be ready. And we built everything on our own. And the rocket had to be stable and recovery had to be good, so that way we could get our altimeter back and our analysis. During the second semester, we started ordering parts for the rocket, and for the entire time, we were just ordering stuff and making sure that we stayed within budget. Our budget was $15,000, so we couldn't go over that, and we had to be ordering like the best parts, and also stay within that budget so we could reach apogee. And the launch date was April 24th, and we had a budget of $15,000, and we had to have everything ordered by the end of February, so everything would be able to get here on time by April. And we were like, we had to design like the whole thing on our own and stuff to make sure we had everything right. And it was kind of hard, because first year, and by the end of March, we started building everything. And yes.
This is the budget. The initial budget allowance for this project was set at $20,500. However, after a thorough review and more accurate cost assessments, a revised estimate indicates that the total expense are projected to approximately 1,100. This adjustment reflects a more efficient use of resources and cost-saving measures implemented throughout the planning process. Further details and comprehensive breakdown of these figures can be found in the budget sheet with items for 1,046.
The obstacles we faced throughout the process was a lot of parts were either too small or too big. At the beginning of our build, we had to cut the body tube, and it turns out the body tube was too small for our motor mount. So we had to order a brand new body tube last minute. I think the exact same week that we had to launch. Then we had to cut our own O-rings, which was too big for our motor mount. And also our nose cone was too big for our body tube. Only because we filed down the inside too much that it ended up being too big. Our body tube was also too big for our coupler. So we taped around it to have it have a good fit.
So for our payload, we decided to use worms, which didn't survive. But the goal was to observe whether they survived the flight and to see how the difference in the atmosphere would change their bodies or change their behaviors.
So the building process wasn't too complicated, but we did have to do a few modifications to the parts of the rocket and some changes. And when we got our parachute, it happened to be too small for the rocket, so we had to order a bigger one. And we also built our own fins and our own centering rings and our rocket stems, which is right there on the bottom left. But while making the fins, we made like the inserts like too big, so we did have to put in some gap in it to some putty to fill in the gaps. And then
So stage one, as soon as you arrive at the launch area, if your team isn't ready, you still have time to finish up your rocket and your flight readiness review. In this stage, teams still have time to review and fix things for the rocket. Some teams had some difficulties and had to rebuild the whole rocket. And in stage one, you have to be ready for testing and taking stage two.
Stage two, all the stages that they check everything on our rockets to make sure we're ready for it to be launched. First, they check our fins, which our whole team was scared because in the beginning we had to tape a fin because it broke off, and then we had to tape a fin, which, I mean, it was stable, but it wasn't as stable enough. So we were scared that we were gonna break them off, which they luckily didn't. Next was our altimeter. We had to rewire our whole altimeter because our wires weren't solid enough. We also drilled both body tubes to the coupler because, like we said, the coupler was too loose for the body tube. Lastly was the nose cone. There wasn't really any problems with the nose cone, but one problem it caused was the shock cord got stuck to our altimeter since we wired it, and the wires were too long, so the shock cord on the rocket got caught onto the altimeter and our parachute didn't launch. And that's it.
So after a very stressful stage one and a very lengthful stage two, we finally received the green light to move on to stage three. Stage three is where they check all the electronic parts of the actual altimeter and set your black powder charge, so when your parachute reaches the altitude that you set, which for us was 500 feet, it will deploy. Oh, and this is us walking triangle formation away from the launch pad.
Like birds.
The final design review, our rocket ended up weighing 14.6 pounds, which is exactly what it said on Roxim, which is approximately 6,622 grams. It was engineered more towards stability, so we can get that 1 pound payload to go up 1 mile. It measured 78 inches in length, which is roughly around 6.5 feet. It had a green exterior. It had a black nose cone, it had plywood fins, and the stability margin was 1.58, which was the accepted stability rate between 1 and 2.
So with the flight analysis and overall, the rocket flew really good. It had no yaw, which the yaw is like the way it goes up. So like it just went straight, so it had no yaw. And the parachute wasn't able to deploy because the shock cord was connected to the parachute, which it just got all tangled up. And most of our rocket got damaged. Like the tip of the nose cone got wrinkled onto the floor because it went like straight down onto the ground. And then over here, even though we don't have a video, we do have pictures of the rocket launching. They're not unnoticeable, but like they're in there.
The rocket project showcased strong engineering and problem-solving skills in building a 1-mile capable rocket with a scientific payload. Despite challenges with parts and a parachute failure, the rocket met stability standards and performed well during launch. The experience highlighted the importance of precision, adaptability, and through testing in aerospace design.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to show our parts. Everyone, you want to show your parts since we did?
Oh, yes. So the one fin that we had taped down is the only fin that stayed on and survived. These are the remains of our mortar, which was a K240, which I have. This was where the altimeter and where our worm sat, and this is what remains of our altimeter and parts of our worm that are stuck on it.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And then this is our nose cone. Thank you guys.
All right, one more thing. So like how far is it somewhere else they launched it? Like, did it just come down like in the same spot or is it like kind of pretty?
On our calculations, it said it was 500 feet away from the launch pad.
And was it pretty close?
Well, we can't go out and recover it, but
Oh, gotcha.
I would say around, because it landed, launch pad right there was like, I think 100 feet out, and the launch pad landed like off over there.
I know there's so many.
This is really exciting.
What this was on.
Hi everyone, so this is your last presentation for the day. I just want to take a brief moment to thank you all of you guys for taking time out of your meeting to listen to our presentations. I know this might seem just like a simple presentation, but it really took us a very long time to get to where we are. I think we all got a lot closer through the process, but I'm Carmen.
I'm Jose. I'm George.
I'm Josh.
I'm Gabriel.
Thank you guys.
So, at the start of the second semester, we began our rocket development by researching like all the different parts, components, and like their functions. Then we learned how to build a rocket, and then later we traveled to ENMUR, so they could help us like also build and finish up the rocket. And then we traveled to the launch site in Jiao, so we could launch our rocket.
So our goal for the mission was to make a rocket that could go 1 mile high with a 1 pound payload. We had a $1,500 budget for the rocket parts, and we had to launch the rocket on April 24th, 2020.
So the timeline was basically what we had to do before we could start running parts, and it was basically just assigning roles to our team members and trying to figure out the dates that we had to meet, such as April 2nd when we had to have our rocket halfway done at least, or so that way we could have our rocket done in an efficient time. And step 2 was basically just making sure we knew all the requirements so that way we could have a stable rocket that would, meet our goal and that would qualify within our budget of $1,500. And step 3 was basically just finding out like what we could get as such as materials with our like $1,500.
The summary of the second semester. The start of the semester was mostly doing the measurements and the math on Roxen, making sure that the rocket would fly. And then we ordered all of our parts needed to build the rocket. And building the rocket had its struggles, like we had trouble cutting the fins. And then, but when it came to launch day, we were ready, and it had an impressive launch.
What do the numbers like stand for? I'm sure it's something. No? Or is it just show, you guys just chose it?
We just chose those numbers. It was just
That was like
randomized.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Alright, so the build process, we started out with drilling all the holes in the body tube, and these holes were used for like such as the altimeter and the orifice for the motor. The motor, and then the rail guides. And then after the holes, all the holes were drilled. The frames were printed out on a piece of paper so that we could cut it out and use it as a stencil for the fiberglass, which gave us a hard time. And then they were glued in, and then the parachute is put into the right there, and it was tied onto the nose cone, and then put into the rocket in the centering rings. And then after all those were finished, the altimeter was placed inside the rocket, and then after that, we were ready to launch. And then at stage 1, immediately on the way over there, our fins, one of them broke off. So we determined that it would be best to use adhesives to glue it back on because it could weigh the rocket down during the flight. So we determined that would be best. And after that, we just set everything up, we did all the calculations, and that's it. We went on to stage 2.
Adhesive, a fancy way of saying.
Yeah, it was just epoxy. Yeah, it was just
epoxy.
Like glue.
Yeah.
They actually did use duct tape too.
I like adhesive. That makes sense.
Stage 2. During stage 2, we were immediately prevented from moving on as the safety range instructor tested our fins and broke the compromised fin from the drive. Although the rest of the stage 2 was a success, as our center of pressure, center of mass, and the weight of the rocket was very accurate as to what it was on the computer in the simulation. And so that was a success. It passed the test, the safety test.
Okay, so in stage 3, we did have no problems at all. Connecting like the gunpowder up to the wires, so they like opened up, they took off the nose cone, and then they got the wires and the black powder, and then they like put like fire white inside, that way it doesn't like burn on the inside. Then they put it back over, and then yeah, they do make you like put your ear up to the rocket so you can like listen for the altimeter beeps, and then they put the fire man jacket like over it to make sure it doesn't like explode or anything whenever it's launching. So, and then after that we walked over to the actual launch site so they could like bring it up to like the thing where it launches.
So the final design of our rocket, so our rocket in total was 7 feet long, so to be exact, 93 inches, and the diameter of our rocket was 4 inches, which was exactly where it needed to be. And the center of gravity of our rocket was set 54.54, which was perfect. And then our stability margin was 1.28, so it had to be between 1 and 2. And our stability margin did give us a lot of trouble, especially weighing it, because we had to go through 3 different places to weigh it, because at some point it was over 2, at some point it was under 2. But finally, we got the correct weight, which was 1.28, and it was stable before it flied. So the rocket was made out of blue tube, which was this part of the rocket. And then the nose cone of the rocket was black, which is this right here. It's somewhere over there. And then the fins of the rocket was made out of fiberglass, which fiberglass is very hard to cut, by the way. We got to find that out. And there was 3 fins in total, and the parachute was black and orange, and the parachute attached the rocket by the string, which we call the shock cord, and it was very long. It was about 4 feet, so it was 55 inches long. And it was attached from the parachute to the nose cone. So there's something that happened between us with our nose cone. So you'll see further on that our rocket did not end up deploying, so our parachute did not deploy and go out because of the fact that our nose cone, instead of measuring the nose cone from where the hole was, because there was a hole inside of our nose cone, instead of measuring it from there all the way down to the bottom of the rocket, which where our fins were, we measured it from the tip of the nose cone to where the fins were. So this is why engineering is very important, because our calculations were wrong, which sadly we got to learn that the hard way. But our rocket was really ready by the final design, and this was the picture that we took before it launched.
Just like they had said, we had to choose a 1-pound payload, and it had to be something scientific, something that we could learn something off of. And it took us quite a while. I'd say it took us about 2 weeks. We didn't know what direction to head, and we ended up choosing chocolate. And so our idea was grab a tumbler that keeps drinks cold, and then we put the chocolate in there, and then we'd get reusable ice cubes. Make sure they're frozen, so then they wouldn't melt the chocolate, and see what happened from there. Our payload was a success, and not only did it help us learn that the atmosphere and the speed of the rocket going up into the atmosphere wasn't going to melt the chocolate, but it also allowed us to enjoy some nice treat after the amazing launch we had.
So we ran into a couple obstacles along the way, such as buying a parachute that was too small for our rocket, and a shock cord that was way too thin for our rocket. And we had to repurchase the altimeter because it was damaged during the build process. And also half our team was gone due to like school events such as like baseball or Skills USA or FFA trips. But one of our like biggest obstacles was our fin being detached during like the trip up to the launch site and having to re-glue that at the launch site. So yeah. And then also during stage 2 we had to rewire our whole altimeter because the safety, whatever guy said that our wiring was wrong. So yeah.
Thanks to our biggest sponsor, the Giro program. We had a budget that we had enough. We had $1,500 that was donated to us as our budget to build the rocket. And well, since our budget was $1,500, we had to keep that in mind as we were building the rocket. And overall, we ended up saving like $400, I think. I think it was like $436 to be exact. We stayed on our budget, which was pretty good for what we built. And well, we were also lucky enough to get donated team shirts, as y'all seen on the numbers part. We were lucky enough to get donated team shirts that we all wore at the site. Pretty nice. We're one of the first teams to get donated shirts.
Nice. I'll take a sponsorship after this.
The flight started off pretty good with little to no movement, but during the flight, the rocket started to develop a little bit of roll. As the rocket hits apogee, the parachute did not deploy. and the rocket started to come down fast. In the end, the rocket stayed together, but because the parachute didn't deploy, the altimeter got messed up because it hit the ground hard, the ground hard, and we couldn't get any information.
No black box.
Oh, and this is our flight. So in conclusion, we did have a stable flight. We did have a little bit of a roll, so it goes back to Newton's 3 laws, which go from a pitch, a roll, and can't think of a yaw, the third one. So we had a little bit of a roll, but it still went pretty straight up. Again, like Josh was saying, when it was coming down, the parachute did not deploy, so we were sadly not able to get any information from our altimeter, which the altimeter had everything in it. So it would tell us if we reached our goal, which was 1 mile, 1 pound. So sadly, we didn't get to know if we did reach the 1 mile, but we did know that we did know that our payload was a success because one, we got to eat the chocolate, it was still solid. But in conclusion, we had a really good flight. We got to represent Dexter really well. We definitely made sure to leave our names good. And by the end of the day, everyone knew who Dexter was. So that was our goal. Most important. And we just want to say thank you again to our sponsors. The shirts were thankfully sponsored by Custom Ink. Gabriel reached out to them, and at the beginning, I did not think they were going to sponsor us, but to my luck, they did. And then Europe did sponsor the $1,500. And thanks again to Systems Go because they were the ones that made all this happen. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening to all of our presentations. You guys have any questions or anything?
Any chocolate left over?
I think that was gone right away. Sorry, I think we left a mess on your floor.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you guys. Oh, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again.
Okay, so we're gonna bump back up to item A, the construction report.
We met last week on Tuesday. I think that it was really productive. All groups were involved. Ms. Miles and Ms. Kobos were able to come. We were able to at least kind of look at the vision for the district from all pieces of all the groups. And based on that information, I felt really confident about the letter we need to write to PSCOC. Previously, we had talked at board meetings that we were going to submit for several months. However, because that information was still kind of lacking and our goal as a district, I was unsure some of the places that were non-negotiables. I held off, and so I feel very confident that we're ready to submit that letter tomorrow for the PSCOC so we can go in June to see if we get the extra square footage.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I felt like it went well too. It is good. Okay, item 3C, board reports. We have a report.
I got back for it. It was lovely yesterday afternoon. And I've been marking my calendar for all the graduations, kindergarten, 8th grade, high school. It's really exciting to see all the kids and the work that they've done this year and how it's homely. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I'm showing a lot of awards assemblies and all of those things too. And I was fortunate enough to go to state track this weekend because the state track's always phenomenal, so that was super cool to watch some kiddos represent there. So that's super cool. So,
Just going on field trips with the kids, so that was fun.
there you go. Item D, superintendent's report.
All the end of year activities are in full swing. Kindergarten roundup was held last Friday. We didn't have as good of a turnout as we would hope, but I think, maybe this late in the year, a lot of them are held in April. So hopefully those kids will start trickling in. Our elementary students have been on a lot of field trips, including White Sands. They went to an Isotopes game, Science Spectrum. Middle school is completing finals this week. Kindergarten graduation is next Monday at 9 a.m. High school graduation, 5/17 at 7. Law conference for board, June 5th, 6th, and 7th in Albuquerque. I currently have not all of you attending. I just need to make sure that's Miles and Linda. Okay, I was making sure that I had that correct, and so we will put in for that. Also, we do need to post board quorum for Saturday for the graduation. So whenever you said that I did write that down. So
Thank you.
everything I think is going well. Very busy right now.
Yeah, it's also, other things, other activities that are happening, like the 8th grade graduation.
I know, even
Let me compile a list for you because there's a lot of things. And I got this week from each of our principals kind of a rundown of the next 2 weeks, and I can compile those together because elementary has color run on the last day of school. There's just a lot, so I'll compile.
My question, I guess, is just, is it possible to post a list of the activities and that all of them could be a possible quorum?
I know.
Yes, because kindergarten graduation might also close if you all, it's more than.
Well, and
Okay,
it's just kind of mind-boggling, but,
I will call and get guidance on how to post that for,
thank
even
you.
if we have to post
Multiple.
14, hey, every day this is happening. But I don't know, surely there's a way.
We'll just get a t-shirt. Potential forum. Always on. Okay, item 4, public forum. So this is a 5-minute limit. Please remember to just be kind, be clean. If we have anybody signed up, we are not allowed to respond to any of the items that are brought forth. We gladly listen, and we can direct you to Ms. Pierce typically, or the correct, and she can direct you to the correct channels, but we just are not allowed to respond here. So, but we do appreciate the input, so. But there's no, I don't know.
No.
There's no. Okay, item 5, business. Item A, approval of administrative salary schedule, and we have notes in here about that.
Yes, so we approved this at the last meeting. The only change is the verbiage in which we consider our transportation coordinator. Currently, they were not, we had discussed possibly not being a year-round. However, after analyzing that information and some back maintenance we need to do, for now, we need to go ahead and keep that a 12-month position. So I just wanted you guys to have that information that we would like to go back to a 12-month position for that. And it's highlighted on there as well for you.
So we have to reapprove it.
Yes, I just wanted you guys to have that option to reapprove.
So, do we have a motion to approve the administrative salary schedule with the transportation coordinator position back as a 12-month position?
I so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
One second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Item B, approval of policy advisory number 261, school schedules and course loads. And so, Ms. Pierce also has given us a little bit of information. Do you want to elaborate a little bit with some of that?
I just recommend that we approve the school schedules, course loads. the state has changed some of the requirements for graduation, and so I recommend that we meet that standard in policy.
Oh, with the graduate profile.
Yes, and then our next step plans will align also with the graduate profile.
And will that be posted publicly?
The graduate profile, yes, and then also, I think that, you know, we may even need to sit and revise when we do have a new administrator. There might be some need for us to sit and just ensure that all parties, even our new person, either A, is aware of the information, or B, if we see an area that we need to revise for the next school year, on what our district want and needs are.
Any questions, comments? Okay, so, do you have a motion for approval of the school schedules and forced loads policy?
I move to approve the school schedules and forced loads.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, approval of policy advisory number 262, IKF graduation requirements.
Okay, so I mixed these two up. The first
Yeah,
one
the first one.
includes the next step plans only, and the fact that those plans are now going to be state generated and they start in 8th grade. So at our 8th grade students will now go with the next step plan to our high school information. And then the approval of policy 262 is for the graduation requirements. And I recommend approval, and the 2 classes that we will have as our local decisions will be a 9th grade career explorations class, and then the capstone for 12th graders. We would have that in our policy as like an exit class for our students.
I move we approve policy advisory number 262, graduation requirements.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, approval of fine arts grant
You
for 25-26.
You should have gotten a copy in the book for the fine arts grant. I just recommend approval for that. A lot of the things have stayed the same in regards to the expectation for that grant and our the ways we're going to spend that grant funding.
I move we approve the fine arts grant.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item E, adoption of elementary school science curriculum, and so elementary
Yes,
teachers.
Good evening. My name is Vilma Velasco and this is Lisa Granados. We were part of the committee to go to Rio Doso in February and bring back information to our staff about that. With everything that we brought back, we brought
about 5 curriculums.
and we decided on one, which was the STEM Scopes science curriculum. I just have a little overview of what it is. So STEM Scopes is based on the practice of 5E, which is engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. And then the STEM Scopes creators, which it was all created by teachers. They went a little bit further and added an I for interventions and A for acceleration. And so all grade levels of STEM Scope has an hands-on learning, which is interactive and engaging to ignite students' curiosity. It is inquiry-based education. It is relevant and has real-world connections. And it's also, they made a connection, or they got with the BBC video company. And so all the videos that come up, which is for every week or however, whichever lesson you're doing, they all have videos from that. So we thought that was pretty cool. Things that we looked at that teachers really commented when we got together was the informational text was very, it helped the students understand a little bit better of what is really rich vocabulary, and had really good graphic organizers, which a lot of teachers really enjoyed. When you do the evaluation, the testing, you could do in 3 different modes. You can do a site evidence reasoning, and open-ended responses, and multiple choice, so the teachers are able to choose what they want the students to use depending on their academic levels or
Just adapt, like
adapted, yes. The lesson plans themselves are flexible, so what they did is the publishers gave you a set, like if you wanted to, the phenomenon, each module or lesson or whatever unit is called a phenomenon now. So if you do phenomenon 1, it should be done within 8 weeks. So the teachers then have the flexibility of doing day 1, you do this, this, and this. And if you don't have a lot of time to do that lesson for that day, you can just show a short video and go on with the lesson. So it's really adaptable and flexible. Everything's hands-on, it has experiments. And then
It has math in it too, so we think it's important to have math in your science, so that the hands-on experimenting, they're measuring plants, and I think it's important. Because I think our math doesn't dig into it as much, so then science is gonna kind of pick that.
So that was another thing that we looked at. The digital, you could do either paper or pencil, or you could do it digital. Everything is assigned. It is Classroom Google compatible. Everything is in English and Spanish. And you can, what they said, this is what I liked. It's called trans-adapted lessons. It's not just translated. So you could translate something in Spanish, but is that really how they speak? So all the stories are actually looked at, and they actually put it the way a Spanish speaker would say things. Everything has English and Spanish. And then, like she said, their math and it's also career connected. And what I liked especially was the website that you go to. It's very teacher friendly, very user friendly. And Lisa got to do a little lesson with her class.
And the kids really enjoyed it, so.
And then, it's really, you can navigate really, really well. So those are the things that we looked at, how they were, every different curriculum that we looked at, how was it adaptable, how, was it user-friendly for the students as well as the teacher and all of that. So that's how we came up to Steve's Code. Okay, I believe Ms. Aragon sent y'all all this stuff that we looked at, all the different curriculums we looked at, and the sign-in sheets and all of that. And then I was talking to Ms. Pierce earlier about how much it was gonna cost.
Right.
And we are adopting it for 6 years instead of just 1 year, so the price does look huge, but if you, it's not that bad. And then of course, the professional development is not included in that price, but we are still looking to see which one. There's different packages that they sent, that Sarah, the representative, sent me. So we're kind of looking at that to see what we want. So, any questions?
Are those videos in Spanish too?
You know what? I believe so.
Okay, because with our math curriculum, I wish our videos were in Spanish.
I believe so.
Get toggles. Does either, you know what you want.
Right.
I just wanna make sure. 'cause
And you can
that's a big thing.
Yeah, and the kids, if they have an experiment they have to do that day, they just didn't understand how you explain it, they can actually go through it and watch what they're needing and all of that.
It goes by step.
Yes. Any other questions?
Consumables, like as far as like all the projects, are those like yearly ordered, or are those just gonna be on the teachers to acquire?
No, they're yearly, they automatically come to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
On
they're,
on the first page, it gives a list of all the information, the very last one on that page, that kids come for years 2 through 6. Yeah, that's okay. Which I think also probably is the reason it's higher as well, just because of the fact that this gives us the ability to use it all 6 years versus the fact that it would be, 1 year. And then you're having to buy and scrounge or.
Any other questions?
Any questions, comments?
So they give, we did the order for K through 5, obviously, and we also included the Spanish, at least 10 Spanish for every classroom. So it comes with and I forgot, I'm sorry, I had the books right there and I forgot to pick them up. So they come with a thin book for them to read all the stories, well, whatever they're looking at for that lesson, and then it's a bigger workbook. And in that a student workbook, and in that workbook, it's the whole year. You don't have to change it. It's another thing
Different
that,
modules, different student books, it is one giant.
one in it, one and done.
And so because it is adoption year, how do we, how does the state, partially fund? I know there's something, right?
So, and Jeannie may be better at
Yeah.
describing that, but basically we get instructional funds every single year, and based upon the adoption year, that's how.
They bump it up some or something.
Except they really haven't bumped it up. Last year we had 160,000, this year we had 165 total. Then reallocated by weighted student count by school.
So they're supposed to, but they just haven't.
Yeah, so there's definitely ways that we can, the instruction on this, it just may be some money from this year, some from July to make sure that we can,
Get it for
Yeah.
August.
and I think this is kind of like at this point, these are everything we want, and maybe, we can pay year by year to have that stuff delivered based upon that, whatever, but this is what we need to be successful with this curriculum, because we do need our teachers to be able to have the Spanish version
Absolutely.
and all of the hands-on
Well,
pieces.
Science.
Yeah, it is, science is more expensive than other curriculums as well.
Yeah, we just vote on this one, okay? So,
I move to adopt the elementary school science curriculum.
okay, we have a motion on the floor, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. STEM scopes it is. Item F, adoption of middle school science curriculum, middle school teachers. I did get a chance to see this.
I spent the most time in the high school one, and it's just because it was on the table as I walked in, and then I got tranced and
I'll give you guys just a good evening. I'll give you guys just a quick overview. While they set up, I am definitely not the content expert, so. So we also attended the curriculum preview day in Ruidosa. That is a phenomenal event. Like, it was great. We got to connect with our elementary counterparts a little bit and just have some very quick discussions. But we set forth with a couple of goals in mind. And one of them, absolutely at the forefront of our discussion, was making sure that there were really quality bilingual supports embedded. Over the last couple of years, we've had a good number of our Spanish-speaking students come to us at the middle school level, and they would be technically considered like year one. And so we just really needed to make sure that those bilingual supports were there, that they were quality, and that they were readily available. And so that was really probably the top thing that we were looking for as we scanned and skimmed materials. And then the next piece was we needed some versatility in the instructional materials as far as science content is concerned. In the state of New Mexico, you can go one of two tracks when you talk about science instruction. And probably, was it 7 years ago, I guess, we were on this road, Mrs. Harper and I, and we had made the collective decision that we would teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science within content areas. So sixth grade traditionally for us had been earth and space science, seventh grade was life science, and then eighth grade was physical science. But now that I'm a little more educated, and these guys are phenomenal, and having a better understanding of what that eighth grade science assessment looks like, it made far more instructional sense to shift away from that and to move towards what they call an integrated model. And so really the short version of that means that at all three grade levels, they're going to be exposed to all three contents. And that it builds and scaffolds. And so once we felt like we had a solid platform for that decision, that was the other big piece that we were looking for as we were skimming, previewing curriculum and whatnot. So anyway, that is all I have to say. I'm gonna give the floor over to my team, who has the fun stuff to show you.
And yes, ma'am, thank you. I did give you guys a little printout. That's just the model of the integrated approach, just so that you can kind of see. I know it's easier for a lot of people to see it on paper, what it looks like, so you'll see where the disciplines of science are kind of getting mixed in there. And then really when I got the opportunity to go to Ruidoso and look at the textbook stuff, one thing Ms. Fergie said to us that really stuck with me was a lot of these textbook companies are, really a lot of them are gonna have a lot of the same features, but what's really gonna move the needle, right? And so that was something that stuck with me when we were there. Me and Ms. Hargrove, we decided on McGraw-Hill, and then again, the integrated approach. We knew we were gonna stick with McGraw-Hill, but we were trying to figure out whether integrated or that content specific was gonna be our route. And then ultimately we went with the integrated approach. So just to kind of show y'all a little bit of what we're looking at, this would be what like the teacher portal side would look like when you log into the dashboard. So going to browse this course, this is where the modules are gonna be set up in that integrated approach. And then each module will have certain lessons to follow with it. And so from a teacher standpoint, when we log into this module, one thing that was good accessibility wise is this is all gonna create like a presentation for you. So this is all the different assessments, all the different tools, all those different things that we're gonna use to teach that actual module or lesson. And it's literally as simple as like opening it up and saying, yes, I wanna add this, or no, I don't. And then as I go through this, making our lesson, then we can click present. And now it's ready for us to present to the class in that sequence that we choose, or however we want to approach it.
Which is great for us blind people that don't.
It is great, yes, it is great.
It's efficient.
And then to call out some of the key things that like Ms. Fergie said, one of the big things was the EL supports and really just that the English language learners. I think McGraw-Hill was probably one of the most focused in that content. So when you look at the module planning resources, I mean, like the fourth one is already EL teaching techniques. So you can click on here and here's just a bunch of strategies to teach science to a non-English speaking student or someone who's at the different levels of whether they're entering and emerging, whether they're bridging, wherever they're at, we can meet them there with each lesson. That was really important. Then there's a couple other things like dual language instruction. This is a good article or a good thing for us to be able to see in both languages, kind of common, what do they call cognates? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is why I need it because I don't know the Spanish language very well. But kind of cognates that are going to be easier for them to relate to their language, but also like the false cognates that they would assume would to translate to a word that they know in their native language, but doesn't necessarily translate like it's supposed to. So this is just a real big call out sheet for us to be able to support those students. And then another big thing that we spent this year doing was a lot of professional development, like with Avid strategies and with like interactive notebooks. And another big thing that we liked about this in particular was down there, they actually show you how to use those interactive notebooks with their curriculum. So Foldables is made by
Dinah Zyke.
Dinah Zyke. She's the one that I guess kind of is pioneering in interactive notebooks in the classroom, and she has a whole bunch of strategies to fold these things together to make all these different graphic organizers and things like that. One thing me and Ms. Hargrove were really struggling with this year is we wanted to use interactive notebooks, but how do we make that fit our science curriculum? And how do we kind of go about making these foldables and making it how it should be? This kind of answered it for us, and it is just a step-by-step for the teacher or for the student on how to do the certain foldables and how to actually basically do the notebook. And so this is something that we can assign in that presentation again to kind of just give more instruction on that stuff.
It's great for the kids, but it's also great for us if we are struggling with a concept. I know I'm terrible at physical science, that's why. And you can do it.
Does the lessons come in Spanish so that you can teach them?
Everything, yes, everything's just a click of a button and it flips it.
Everything, this was a big pull for us, is everything is translatable into Spanish. And it does it correctly.
What about the material that you have so it's also contains?
Correct, yes.
The whole enchilada.
Yeah, everything. And then the last really big tool, I guess, that was kind of a decision maker for us is this thing called LearnSmart or SmartBook. They're kind of going together, I guess. One thing I learned, like in other, like history, for example, when I go and talk to our history teachers, is they get to do like chunked reading. And so my understanding is basically that's like a stopping point and you have to kind of answer some questions, make sure you're engaged with that reading before it allows you to continue on. Science hasn't had that luxury. Science is just, give them the big old hard text to read with the big words and work on it together or hope that they work on it independently.
Nothing sticks.
LearnSmart and SmartBook is that chunked reading, and so it's going to chunk it into certain paragraphs and ask them those specific questions to what they just read before it even allows them to move on to the next section of reading. So it kind of just brings what they're doing in other classrooms into the science world too, and so it was a good tool for us. Those are kind of the biggest things that led us towards choosing McGraw-Hill, was just its ability to support our EL learners. It's going hand in hand with what we're already doing in the middle school as far as like Avid strategies, interactive notebooks and things like that. And then when it comes to accessibility from a teacher or student standpoint, we felt like this was one of the easier ones to be able to navigate the technology side of it all.
Can you show us an example of the Spanish wording that they use?
Sure, so.
And so far, the customer support, correct me if I'm wrong here, has been
it's been
really good. They
phenomenal.
are very responsive.
And so is it all online component or will they have like hard copies?
They have options for both, and I believe we're going with having the hard copies available as well.
So the students, student consumables are on an annual renewal. So those, we have the ability to edit the shift, but they come to us at the end of every, so like at this
Now,
time
then-
next year, correct, we'll have the consumables for the next instruction
And we are
year.
gonna do consumables or are we gonna do online?
It'll be both,
Oh, yeah.
it'll be both.
Because the student notebook is, I believe, it changes every 9 weeks. So that kind of helps us make, the pacing decision a little bit faster. But once they're done with that one, they can just hold on to that for later on. And once again, it's chunked up very nicely. So they're absorbing it and we can make sure they're absorbing it, not just breezing through it. Going, I never learned that.
It does a good job of teaching that content-specific vocabulary in context. And science is rough like that. It's very, very intense.
So here would be an example of it, just having the Spanish version readily available for the assessment. This is lesson 1 about cells. And so this would be like the online version of, this would be the online version of performing this assessment. Where it's just gonna come up already in that native language for you. And then the same thing would be if we wanted to do a printable version. I haven't navigated it enough to print it.
I mean, I'm kind of impressed with the fact it must be like, fairly easy.
Yeah, it is. And then when we actually went to the adoption, one of the things I love too is they said everything is already translated. Like they have a PDF version available in Spanish and then like 13 other languages that I'm not sure we would ever need. But it also plays well with Google Chrome where if for whatever reason something went weird, you can hit that Google Translate feature and the whole webpage just seamlessly integrates to translate.
And this curriculum is way different from what the elementary is using and what the high school is.
It's a different publisher, but we're all, my understanding is we all have the same standards that we're gonna have to teach and use.
It is very
It's
similar.
just a different, kind of like, I guess, a different way to skin a cat kind of a method.
So for STEM Scope, they talked about the different platforms, the earth science, the life science. STEM Scope does that K through 5. So every phenomenon is either earth science or life science or space. So they go through these modules and they all are one of those platforms or one of those.
So it's basically integrated.
Yes, yes, it is. So kindergarten will get that, and then you go to first grade and they'll get that, and it keeps going.
So it is like if you guys were building every year. Or it's the
Yes,
same-
it's just a different publisher.
And high school, has chosen the same publisher for their, for their classes.
So middle school and high school will be using the same routes.
Correct.
High school, it is content specific as opposed to our integrated, but it's because they are content specific, they earn those credits. But it will be just like this.
And I guess really the last cool call out that I liked, I just remembered our STEM project. So every module is gonna have a project that's a STEM based project for them, every module. Like this one is about cells, and so I think their module is about their STEM project rather, is finding some sort of sample from outer space and having to determine whether it's living or not. And that's the project that they have to complete at the end of this module. So it's kind of cool to get that career exploration going in with it and really kind of driving home why we're doing what we care, right? Why the phenomenon matters to us in our everyday life.
And did you say that the lesson itself is in Spanish?
Yes, yes, ma'am. So,
And the consumables will be as well.
yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And that was one of the things, and they kind of touched on this already, but the publishers have come a long way in 7 years. When we were on this path last time, it was rough because they really did not do a good job of including solid bilingual supports. And so, shout out to our publishing companies for getting it figured out. But and one of the things that really pushed us in this direction is because they have intentionally built in those translated pieces, and they're not just relying on that Google Translate function. Because while that's great, it doesn't always work. So.
High school did order this.
High school too, they're gonna, yeah. I mean.
The law and science teacher.
But yeah, that's all I had to present. I don't know if y'all have any other questions or anything.
I'm just curious why you chose to go integrated rather than just like Earth. That's fine.
It's nice because sixth grade is really just earth and space science. And seventh is just life science. And then eighth is just the physical science. But as I said, with the state testing we did, we realized these kids, they've kind of forgotten a lot of the sixth grade stuff. They've forgotten all the life science stuff. So they got up there and they're like, I know this, Coach taught us this, I don't remember this, and I don't remember this. And the nice thing about it, on the 8th grade level, it brings in, they do some 6th grade stuff, and they pull some of that 8th grade and that 7th grade. So they've got a good mix, and it kind of refreshes their memory.
Well, that's what I was wondering, like if it comes through the elementary.
And I think for me personally, I had those same questions, so I'm a year 2 teacher, and so as soon as I started hearing integrated versus like curriculum specific and all this, I was like, Ms. Fergie, what are they talking about? What's better,
No, that's what I was hoping to hear,
yeah.
it was because of testing,
And
so,
and so when you look at the research, there's research to suggest both are very beneficial. And for me, it was ultimately when I went to that state test and saw that, the state test is broken into 3 sessions, but those sessions are integrated as to what they're being asked of them. And so it kind of made sense, if we're going to integrate assessment, we should probably integrate the teaching methods as well. And I like the call out that little printout I gave you. It gives you a little call out about like, how am I supposed to teach a kid like how a human affects the environment if I haven't even taught them the water cycle yet. So this is a good way for them to learn step 1, the prerequisite, before we get into that kind of more meat and potatoes of what we're teaching them.
And keeping in mind that only 8th grade tests for science. So we, and that was part of the conversation we had, one of the things you can't do is create time during the day. So how do they cover the content specific things that they need to cover, and us still effectively build in all of this reteaching with, previous content, and it just made more sense to transition to that integrated piece where it was done naturally and that scaffolding piece was already there.
Any further discussion?
Any questions?
No, very good, thank you. Adoption of middle school science curriculum, we have a motion on the floor.
I move we approve the middle school science curriculum.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, and Rob Hill it is, integrated science.
Thank you.
Thank you. High school, item G, adoption of high school science curriculum.
Okay, I'm on the school there. With me and my little bag.
Oh, there you are.
I brought the books. Okay, so this is basically kind of a everything. This would be, well, I don't know if we're gonna be doing air science or not. This is physics, and I believe, yes. G. History. And anatomy and physiology. Okay, right now what we teach is biology, chemistry, anatomy, physiology, and physics. We teach those. And so that's the four main ones right there. Earth science was one that I kind of suggested because that is part of the state testing. And I was looking at that to maybe see if we could integrate that, but it's also kind of integrated in some of the other texts that we have. So basically, they pretty much said everything
This
else
is just
about
like the hard
Rockhill.
copy of
It's just
that.
it's just exactly like that. The one thing I do like about this is that it does have virtual labs that that the kids can do, and it goes along with the chapters so that they can do the virtual labs. And of course, we'll also do the hands-on too, but it kind of gets them going and kind of gets them interested in it. So basically, like I said, they pretty much have said everything. And the thing was that when we were looking at this, I got to thinking myself, I think this first person must have heard me thinking. Because I thought, well, why don't, the middle school and the high school, we need to kind of coordinate with each other. Because when the 8th graders come up to high school, I expect them to know some stuff. And with that being said, hopefully now, when they start coming up, I don't have to go back and repeat stuff. So
what's the order again? Can you remind us?
well, biology is freshman, and then they have a choice of chemistry or physics, and then anatomy and physiology. So no, physics is something else. But it's really good. It gets the kids. They like with the system scope.
Right.
Most of those kids I have them in class. Right now, there was about 5 or 6 of them that are in physics. And some of the math that they did, they were doing in physics.
It's carrying over.
Mm-hmm. And you have the bilingual support as well. Yes, it does. It has the bilinguals. It's all on the internet. And that's the other thing is that we get like a classroom set of books, then they can go online to because all of these books are online also, and it's in Spanish and English. So that would be pretty good for us.
Okay, well, I'm seeing the word phenomenon on here. Revisit the phenomenons. So there's some
That's the
correlation.
NGS.
The NGS.
Yeah.
So instead of units, instead of modules, they now switched it to phenomena.
Yeah, that's what they're going towards. So like I said, I'm old school, so I'll let y'all put it first.
Have any questions? Okay, item E. Adoption of high school science curriculum.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion on the floor or any further discussion?
I would like to. Motion to adopt the high school.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Segovia to adopt the high school curriculum. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. McGraw-Hill for high school. Okay, item 8, approval of Chromebook purchase.
So technology was looking at budget that they have remaining for this school year. And the amount that they have left would allow us to have 10th through 12th grade to go ahead and upgrade to Chromebooks for next school year as well. Seeing that Chromebooks gives us a lot of options for our technology department to oversee those somewhat virtually and not have to put their hands on every single Chromebook. That's an important piece of this to allow us to have our kids work seamlessly. The other thing that Chromebooks allow us to do that we've kind of started to discover is we can track those devices as well. So that's also a positive. So we are recommending that we would go ahead and just upgrade all sections of the high school for next school year. With that, we would keep the computers we currently have for such things as high school dual credit classes, so that way when they need Word or Excel or any of that, we still have access to them. We can also put those into classrooms in carts, so that way they aren't going to waste as well. But this will give us on the daily a more manageable device, as well as the price point of that device is a fourth of the other devices. So if we do have, breakage or anything like that, I feel parents are going to be able to afford that device comparative to the device we currently have for students.
And we do have the budget now.
Yes, correct. This is the funding that we have left over in technology after they have paid all the bills through June 30th, that this would allow us to use that funding.
I move to approve the purchase of the Chromebook.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. A motion by Ms. Miles and a second by Ms. Segovia. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes on those. Item I, discussion of leave policy.
So, as we're looking at different leave policies and the information, I passed it out to you guys right before we got started on a possibility for next school year. So currently, our 9-month employees receive 13 days, which is 6.84% of their contract, in which they currently are contracted for 190 days. But based upon next school year, when we are rolling back to 165 days, I think it is important for us to keep that percentage the same or as equal as possible in whole days. But there's some things that we could do to better enable our staff to use days to their needs. So on the 9-month leave, this would look like possibly you're still going to have the same number of sick days, 9. However, we could allow 4 of those days to be used as sick leave personal. So if somebody chose to use that for a personal day, they would be able to. Currently, they're only 1 personal day. So this allows our staff to use that leave as they see fit. As well as, you'll notice the family leave on the proposal would go down to 0 because now they can use that sick leave personal the same way. The family leave now allows us to get to 11 days to keep us at the same percentage as next school year. So I kind of just wanted to give you this information. I'd like this to go out to staff, let them think it over, and that's why it's just a discussion item for today. So that way there may be more ideas. It may come back that we want to be able to use all 9 as sick leave personal, and that way staff has that ability. Currently, I just kind of kept it pretty much equal in the number of days that way. So a creative way for people to be able to use their days, not just for sick, but whenever they do have personal. A lot of our staff has kids involved in different activities or sports, and this would allow them to not have to make a doctor's appointment for that same reason. They would be able to go. So, and sick leave, the part that we would not kind of want to go away from is that it's accumulated. So whenever staff doesn't use that for this school year, they would accumulate it for next year's school sick leave. So
How does that translate at the end of somebody's, right, because we have had this kind of discussion.
So I think the reason that I chose to keep the sick leave versus go to paid time off is because sick leave is not paid out. And the sick leave personal currently is not paid out in our current policy. So it would literally.
Sick leave is not paid, sick leave is personal.
Currently it's not.
Just regular personal.
Right, that's,
Only annually,
Yeah,
usually
that's-
on a property right, where it's
Yes.
up to 24 days.
so only our 12-month
Because that's
employees.
what our policy, that's how our policy is written.
So this keeps us in line with our current policy. It just changes that sick leave personal, allows them to use a sick leave day for personal reasons as well. So kind of just wanted you to have this, look at this.
So sick leave, it becomes sick leave for personal.
Yeah, and I didn't roll it all over to sick leave personal. So right now with the sick leave personal, so you get 9 days as a 9-month employee, which is all our teachers, our EAs. And then one of those 9 sick leave days, you may choose to use all 9 of them as sick leave, but you're able to use one of them as a personal day of some sort. Whereas here we could roll that over. So just for you guys to think about, as we do have a staff that, is doing a lot has a lot of students involved in activities, and so this would allow them to use days that were used to be considered just sick leave.
Right, and so whenever we looked at it last time, Mr. Chair, it just had some clauses in the policy that made it kind of just a little bit ambiguous as to who approved those leaves and whether they were, I guess, right, sick leave is sick leave and it's automatically approved.
Yes.
Whereas like personal, it's still left up to
So,
administrators or whatever.
and that's what the paid time, that was what the paid time off that they brought in front of you. And so I think this gives a compromise for paid time off. In regards to, we still have that sick leave, they're still in policy. If it's the last 2 weeks of school, the first 2 weeks of school, the day before or after a holiday, superintendent approval is needed. However, this allows for some more freedom for those sick leave personal days. So I think I understood that piece of that on the paid time off.
So you're the one that's gonna approve, or just like the principal would approve those teachers, like, say for example, a wedding after Christmas or before Christmas, you would approve it, or admin?
So it would be two approvers if it's gone from that. But I think that's part of this is keeping some of our current policy of we're not giving away the sick leave piece of that, because you can take sick leave at that time. It's just the sick leave personal that you have to have approval before or after a holiday. And don't quote me on this, but there's also a piece of that, less than 25% or 10% of the school can be out on that day. Currently, that's not being followed like that. There is definitely schools that have more or less depending on the need. And I don't see currently very, very little leave is actually being turned away based on time.
So you'll be able to get feedback from the staff?
Yes, I think that's important. And we could leave the number of days the exact same as they currently get. But my concern with that is the fact that we are cutting the number of days by 30 days. So how do we ensure that we're also probably cutting the leave at the same percentage for each group? the same, so you'll notice that percentage as well on here, just noted, so that way you could see.
Oh, thank you for working. Okay, item 6.
I'm
Finance
sorry.
it.
Where do you find the policies?
On the board policy,
Yes.
on the website underneath, the board of Education, it said board policy, then it's gonna take you to another website, NMSBA, and you're gonna go scroll down to Dexter. If you're on a computer, you can actually do a search feature that'll give you any of that information versus a phone. It does not like. I know. Slow love tag.
Item 6A, approval of April bills and payroll and all of that is in her.
I would we approve the April bills and payroll.
So we have a motion on the floor, do we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion passes. Items 6B, blanket approval of budget adjustments.
Jeannie is gonna speak on.
Yeah, so we have a deadline coming up early June to head on some funds, set our bar deadlines. So that'll be before our next board meeting, so, this is what we do, ask for blanket approval through June 30th, and then we'll bring them to you. Otherwise, we miss the deadline.
Or we have to have a special meeting, right?
Yeah, multiple special meetings.
Do you have any? I mean, I'm personally still to where we can have a special meeting and we can approve those things as they come through. That's just me personally. I don't know if you guys have any further discussion as far as that goes.
I'm okay with this special meetings.
Okay. So, not to approve it? Or figure
I move to not approve blanket approval of budget adjustments.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, do we have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So, Ms. Harris, you can just let Ms. Pierce know on when we need to have those special meetings to meet those deadlines. Item 7A, new hires. Item B, resignations. We have a Debbie Jinglock principal at the high school and Ms. Slayton sped teacher at the high school as well. Item 8, correspondence, future meetings and events. Item A, correspondence. Do you have any correspondence? Item B, future meetings and events. We have this Saturday, the 17th, high school graduation, 7 p.m. Next. I'm all next to my.
And that Monday, do we have?
I'll text
Kindergarten graduation on Monday at 9 a.m. Last student day, summer it starts May 23rd. May 26th, Memorial Day, this district is closed, and then staff PD on May 27th. And then we do have the law conference June 3rd through 5th.
5th through the 7th.
5th through 7th.
Sorry. Well, I'm just shaking my head, yes, that's.
I know. Item 9, adjournment.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. We have a second.
A second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Segovia, second by Ms. Miles, and all in favor? Aye. All right, this meeting is adjourned at 5:49 p.m., just in time for.
We would like you all to attend the staff appreciation dinner.
I'd like to see all letters get out. Not just one. I said if y'all let us get out of here, so we can go.
I know, I'm like,